The Great Reset, the globalist agenda, a relentless march towards tyranny where ordinary people are mercilessly crushed. Except in India, a valuable victory has been won by their farmers. Protest is the only way forward. Standing up to power is the only hope we have. Let's have a closer look at it. Hello there, you 4.5 million wonders, and a particular welcome to those of you in India, from India, connected to India. And those of you in England, if you are in England, come see me between January and May. I'm performing live all over the UK, particularly in Hammersmith, early February, and all sorts of places in the south. There's a link in the description. Now, some positive news. We hear again and again how the globalist agenda, the relationship between governments, big business, and a corrupt media are able to crush any dissent. How there is no consent in the way the world is organised. Well, now, after years of protest, it seems a historic victory has been achieved by Indian farmers coming together against you-know-who. What kind of interests are operating in India? They're names that are continually on our lips. Big business, corporation, big tech, curiously, and of course, you know, oddly, Bill Gates is even involved in this story, but when isn't he? Let's have a little look. Workers' rights activists around the globe rejoiced after Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi announced that his government will repeal 3 corporate-friendly agricultural laws that the nation's farmers have steadfastly resisted for more than a year. SKM, a coalition of over 40 farmers' unions that led the protests, called the development a historic victory for those who struggled resolutely, unitedly, continuously and peacefully for 1 year so far in the historic farmer struggle. For over a year, CNN reported, Indian farmers have fought the 3 laws which they said leave them open to exploitation by large corporations and could destroy their livelihoods. While Modi claimed the legislation will unshackle millions of farmers and help them get better prices, small farmers expressed alarm about the legislation, saying that the changes make them vulnerable to competition from big business and they could eventually lose price support for staples such as wheat and rice. Beginning last September, farmers from regions of India that are major producers of wheat and rice blocked railway tracks, which was followed by larger nationwide protests, including some that used trucks, tractors and combine harvesters to block highways leading to New Delhi, the nation's capital. If you ever do want things to change, you have to operate outside systemic means, because the system, obviously, as you already know, is designed to sustain itself. So change will come from outside of the system using tools and means that the system rejects. It can't ever be violent, obviously for moral and ethical reasons, but also because those techniques and methods don't work because the system knows how to deal with violence. You're under arrest, you're going to prison, we're going to be violent towards you. State violence is now further legitimised. That's why the non-violent movement, which of course emerged from that country under Gandhi, is so ingenious, because it does provide a solution. So in a sense, it's not surprising that the country of Gandhi is one that is able to confront this new colonisation the same way that they confronted colonisation in its former form under British imperialism. But Al Jazeera reported that Modi's sudden concession comes ahead of elections early next year. Oh, I get it. There's an election. People are not happy that you keep ignoring these ongoing protests in favour of the interest of globalist agricultural giants that are plainly having a negative impact on farmers, and there's an election next year. So until the election next year, shall we pretend to be nice to farmers? I mean, if you could. Opposition parties attributed the Prime Minister's move to sinking poll numbers, characterising it as part of an effort to appeal to voters who support or sympathise with the nation's struggling farmers. We see this everywhere. Campaigns before elections in America, Britain, France, people always like, look, you're not very popular. Why is that? Because you spent your whole time in government doing things to facilitate the interests of big business while ignoring the needs of ordinary people. And there's an election coming. Could we pretend to care about people? Yeah, let's pretend to care about people. Then we'll go back to doing what we do best, rolling over for big business. But for a little glimmering, little shimmering window, let's just pretend that we're doing this for the people who voted for us. Nonetheless, it does show that if there is a concerted, consistent effort by ordinary people to come together to oppose corrupt power, change can be made. And even if this is a temporary measure to appeal to people in order to get another term in government, they have formed a movement now, and it shows us that what we have to do if we disagree with something, if we think there is corruption, is come together, of course peacefully, to oppose corrupt power. Farmers are the biggest voting bloc in the country. You'd think then that the whole country would be set up to help farmers to some degree or another, rather than driving them to their own deaths by treating them so badly. Why would there not be a kind of modus operandi of helping the majority of people in the country that you're running? You know the answer. Because corporate interests, lobbying, secretly, or at least quietly, control those governments. But it's just so ridiculous that the whole postulating, the posing, the pageantry continues when that is so plainly true. Farmers are the biggest voting bloc in the country, and the agricultural sector sustains about 58% of India's 1.3 billion citizens. By last December, protests spread across India as farm organisations called for a nationwide strike after inconclusive talks with the government. Over the course of several months, which included a brutal winter, farmers continued to agitate for full repeal of the three laws. Repression from Modi's nationalist Bharatiya Janata Party resulted in hundreds of deaths. At the largest rally to date, more than 500,000 farmers gathered in Uttar Pradesh on September 5th, roughly 10 weeks before Modi announced that he will repeal the laws. The repeal of the three farm laws, unconstitutional with no demonstrable benefits, and aim to expand corporate control over agriculture, is a major political victory for India's peasant movement, said R. Ramakumar, an economics professor in the School of Development Studies at the Tata Institute of Social Sciences in Mumbai. Their resolute struggle has shown and amplified the power of dissent in our democracy and the necessity of dissent in any democracy, particularly as democracy becomes more and more challenged. If you watch some of the congressional conversations around what's happening in America, or the political conversations that are happening in the UK, or heaven forbid you look at what's going on in Australia, it's clear that democracy is under threat. You might believe that it's under threat for, necessary reasons, but a lot of people don't, and that is not democratic anyway. Like, if loads of people think, hey, hang on, this isn't right, can we vote please? Ooh, that's not what I wanted. If you're ignoring that, you're not in a democracy anyway. So your opinion is sort of irrelevant on the actual issue. But it's heartening to hear that in India, at least, the principles of protest, the willingness of people to sacrifice, the possibility of people coming together serves as a beacon, as a template, as an opportunity for all of us as global people to stand up against oppression, because it comes increasingly in similar identifiable forms. Corporate power, collusion with government, disregard of political promises, pledges that were made while campaigning, and the instantiation of rules and regulations that don't help ordinary people and benefit big business. That could describe any country, not just India. Prem Vadagopal, a professor of post-colonial studies at the University of Cambridge, placed the overturning of Modi's unpopular reforms in a broader context, arguing that the victory of farmers in North India is not a local matter. This is a victory of global significance, she added. Immense class and oppressed caste solidarity, fierce determination, and deep courage defeated the combine of chauvinist authoritarianism and corporate greed, our common enemy. What an inspiring piece of analysis that is. Simultaneously in India, big tech are making moves that may be relevant to this issue. In India, companies like Amazon and Facebook are leading a wave of investments to take over food distribution and retail in partnership with the country's wealthiest tycoons and the backing of the central government's reforms. Big tech's ambitions with food and agriculture are global and extend to all aspects of the food system, including digital agriculture. Just as with other sectors of the economy, large corporations such as Microsoft, Amazon and IBM are racing to collect as much data as they can from all the nodes of the food system and becoming more and more integrated and connected through corporate partnerships, mergers and takeovers, enabling corporate capture of the food system. What's going on in India has got Bill Gates' fingerprints all over it. And of course, Bill Gates ain't just operating in India. Wherever you are in the world, this is a globalist movement. You know already from our videos that Bill Gates is buying up farmland all over America. You're aware of GM food modification. That's happening everywhere in the world too. So these issues don't just affect India, and the victory of protesting Indian farmers should be an inspiration to all of us. These developments in digital agriculture are not divorced from big tech's aggressive moves into food distribution and retail. In fact, digital agriculture is building the centralized production systems upstream that will supply big tech's evolving operations downstream, which are rapidly displacing the small vendors who have long served to bring foods from small farmers to consumers. It's clear that the solution to many of our problems will come in the form of decentralization, localism, communitarianism. ordinary people democratically running their own lives. It's also clear that the biggest opponent to this is our existing governments, their relationships with big tech and big business, and corrupt relationships that take place in the rarefied strata of institutional elites that are beyond the reach of ordinary people. It's impossible for us to communicate. Censorship is everywhere. So this victory in India, even if you're a person that don't pay much attention to Indian politics, should be heartening to those of you in Australia with what you're confronting, heartening to those of us in the UK, heartening to the people in the USA. Do you really think that our problems are of an entirely different flavour? Do you think that we don't face problems of corporate corruption, government collusion, media distraction? It's the same the world over. Of course, there are cultural inflections and geographical realities that are particular to every place, but ultimately we are all suffering under the same globalist agenda. This is a problem that involves all of us and requires a solution that similarly will involve and engage us all. But that's just what I think. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Tell me how you feel about this. Are you over there in India right now? Are you affected personally by this? Tell us exactly what's going on. Give us a thumbs up. Give us a like. Subscribe to the channel. Turn on the notification bell. If you enjoyed this video, have a look at this one. Similar themes around the world. If you need to have a little meditate now, have a look at this on my side channel, Awakening with Russell Brand. And please sign up to my mailing list as well so I can stay in communication with you. Those of you that are in the UK, come see me between January and May. I'm performing all over the place and there's a link in the description. Stay free.